Okay, everyone, I'm here. And you want to know the funny thing? I'm actually early this evening, which is kind of insane. That never happens, but here we are. And yeah, I have, what do I got? I got 10 releases this week, and kind of a mix. We got a little bit of the rock and metal categories. We got, I think there's some electronic music in here. We got a little rap and hip hop. There's even some pop and indie as well. So it is a full-on, honest to goodness type of stream in terms of the. It's obviously a stream. It's always a stream, but it's full on with regards to all of the genres. Yeah, I don't really have anything too much to say other than what is in the video description, which is basically, I was listening to a bunch of stuff from February and nothing was really hitting. And then I was just like, you know what? February's almost over. And if I want to go back, because there were some albums from January that I had started listening to, that I had even sort of perused a few times, if you will. And I never actually sat down long enough with them to, as happens from time to time, just actually do a little review and get them out here. And I said, you know what, February, we still got a little bit of time. Next week is going to be a February week too, because this Friday is the final Friday of February. So we're still going to be talking about February releases next week and realistically into the beginning of March as well. So I figured, you know what, like, let's go back right now at the end of February, and I'm going to try and hit as many of the things from the January playlist that I had left that I was just like on the fence about. I gave them some listens, and some of them I determined, yep, I was fine with being on the fence, and then other ones I'm glad I went back to and came into them with fresh ears, because there were some good things there. There were actually some really good things that we'll get to at the end of the stream that I'm glad I didn't miss, all things considered. But there are also a number of releases here from just this last week, so it's kind of a mix. But I figured with the end of February, and I'm probably going to sneak a few January releases in next week as well, because there are a few more that I didn't get into this one. I didn't have the time. And 10 is, like I said, the number I'm going to be generally shooting for moving through the rest of the year. So enough gabbing. Let's get to the music. Right, what am I doing here? I'm putting us over to the music. And okay, there we go. So up first, we have got ourselves a mini album, right? This is the mini mistер модератор, with the album, or the mini album Mod. Just going to keep it short and simple with the description. It's one part hyperpop, the other part is kind of SoundCloud rap. End result is something that is 100% born of the internet, of a life largely spent online. This is that Russian internet pop sound that I often talk about, where it's this amalgamation. It sometimes feels like it's rap, it other times feels like I said, that sort of hyper pop. It's just a little bit of anything and everything that the artists are going for. The type of music that's kind of fun. Actually, it's fun to listen to in small doses, but as an overall genre, or one of those things, I just can't imagine listening to it for long periods of time. And I think the one problem with this overall sound too is that it's very difficult for artists to stand out in any sort of meaningful way from the crowd. But still, it is a very good, bouncy, fun, distorted time. I realized once again that I had not connected my headphones. So let me go ahead and do that now. It's so nice not having anything in my ears, but yeah, okay. You would think that I would remember to do this by now, but this is also, I guess, becoming a bit of the ritual of these things. So let me just go ahead and all right, computer says it's connected. Yep, all right, we're good. Transitioning back. Okay, so yeah, let me just play us a little bit here so you get this kind of hyperpop SoundCloud rap thing, this kind of bouncy, fun little stuff. Again, hyperpop, SoundCloud rap. The distortion is still one of those things that's very key in this sound. And just, I think that's a big, not problem. It's a problem for the artists who work in this because the distortion, the auto-tune, there's very little sense of the individual artists here. There's like a whole bunch of them. I probably talked about like 6 or 7 of them last year, right? This might be the second or third one I've talked about this year. And while the individual albums are fun and everything, that like they just don't stand out. And it's one of those things where, you know, if they do come out with another album, it would be hard to remember what their last one was like. Now, having larger guests on this one, like Soda Love, I guess it's just Soda Love.
Со мной не сваришь кашу, да и нахуй надо. Давай пожарим мясо на углях в камине прямо. Моя богиня, только тебя хочу видеть рядом. Малышка, тебя не подвинет никакая лярва. Я украл тебя теперь.
So yeah, you get the idea. I know this is one of those subgenres of music that is obviously not for everybody, but I still, it's grown on me over time. And I think one of the things I really like about it is it feels like I remember the early days of the internet as just like this sort of chaotic digital aether that we all kind of existed in, and everything was swirling around and smashing, and like the days of girl talk albums were just like, you can just put everything together and it still works, right? And like that, like I'm glad to see that I know hyperpop is at this point in time kind of an old thing, and I know that was to some degree that mentality back then too, but it's good to see that it's continuing, because I think there is something to it, just that sort of free-for-all attitude. But anyway, that is the mini album Mod by the artist Mr. Moderator. Okay. Up next, we have, I actually don't know where the stress is on this word. I know it's womb, but anyway, Чрево. Oh, it's a painful word to say. This is the album Чрево. Translates to womb, like WOMB. I guess that's actually not an easy word to say either, but Чрево by the artists Ветл, Удалых, and Billy Nogami. Yeah, this is that sort of deep underground rap stuff, the stuff that's so far underground it's like best to avoid if you have respiratory issues, because there are probably 3 types of mold and just like ever-present dampness surrounding this. And that sort of like underground, damp, dark sort of thing is present throughout this whole album, or this mini album as well, in the sense that as a sound too. There's a lot of that. It's not always like that, but there are moments that feel a little bit like horrorcore, and then otherwise it's just like kind of a general underground hip hop sound. This is one of those albums that I had come around to a few times, and each time I came around to it, it was like I liked what I was hearing. I just didn't. Maybe I was in the wrong headspace, or not with the right set of headphones or something, because that also does make a difference, right? Some of them have more bass, some of them don't. Sometimes it's over speakers or whatnot. But I came back around to it one last time this week, and I'm glad I did. So I'm going to throw a few things on here so we get the idea. But this is probably the track that's got the most of the sort of horrorcore sound, if you will. I do like the album artwork here. It's odd, which fits with the music. Not perfect, but
заготовлены ямы, их миллионы, имена не нужны. Никто нас не вспомнит, дымит крематорий слой за слоем копоти. Уже так похуй, что за плану Бога на бетон.
Lyrically, there's a lot of that sort of death and dark imagery going on too, which does lend to the horrorcore vibe. But there are plenty of tracks too that just have a kind of classic underground rap sound.
Нахуярился на лавке, уснул, проснулся уже без штанов. Ты пахнешь водой, в которой завяли наши белые розы. Слизывай тщательно, чтобы
Коросик,
кончать, не меняя
welcome,
позу.
welcome.
Начальника назначать, как выяснилось, было поздно. Качался на стуле, рассматривал...
Коросик еще хотел сказать, что вчера, когда вы писали, я что-то не понял, что вы имели в виду, что вы занимаетесь ремонтом сейчас. Я думал, что вы говорили о том, что я постоянно делаю что-то с руками. Anyway. So it's got a nice mix. Like again, the horrorcore thing, Korosik, right? I gotta throw that out there. It's not a huge part of it, but it is, I feel, fairly present throughout this release. There is a darker sound to the underground rap sound. And like, let's be real with the album artwork. So if you're looking for kind of that really underground hip hop, like this is some stuff that I've never even seen these people's names brought up before. Actually, I do know when I was looking into this, the Ветл Удалых worked with what's his name, Pika, yeah. Pika and Ветл Удалых, and I know Pika is a name that I'm at least somewhat familiar with. I've seen it around as well. So there is some connection there. But yeah, this is still really underground stuff, all things considered. And it's got a sound that feels appropriate for that too. Not too aggressive and dark, as can oftentimes be the case with horrorcore. But not like just sort of that traditional underground hip hop sound. So it's got something there. Like I said, this is one of those things that I came back to a number of times because it was just like I couldn't quite figure out what it was. But yeah, it's actually an interesting little mini album here, all said and done. So yeah, let me try to pronounce this one last time. Чрево. That's the name of the album. Чрево. Чрево. Not a fun word to say, but then again, womb in English is not a fun word to say either. And yeah, the artists here are Ветл, Удалых, and Билли, Nogami. And yeah, pretty good album artwork. Not gonna lie, I always gotta give that to. All right, we're moving on to another rap album, and this is from Big Baby Tape. Big Baby Tape. This is the ILOVEBENZO mini album. Big Baby Tape is probably one of the bigger names in the Russian rap game these days, or at least in kind of like the pop rap end of things. And I'm not like super well versed in his output. The last thing I listened to him, really the only thing I'm familiar with him is the album he did with Arne, I think 2 years ago, with Supersonic on it. And like that album, absolutely loved. I thought that was just like fantastic stuff. And yeah, I did a cursory overview of his back catalog. So this is obviously markedly different than his early output. And if you go online and you read what people have to say about it, it seems like pretty much online, the only people who are writing anything about this album are people who are fans of his old stuff. So they absolutely hate this. I don't know. It is definitely more commercial from his earlier output, but I enjoyed this. It wasn't perfect. It's not a perfect album or a perfect release in any sense, but it's that 2010s trap sound like Zaytoven, Metro Boomin, has a lot of Future energy. And I'll be honest, I was not a huge Future fan when Future came out, but as the years have passed, I do recognize his impact on the music scene, and I also do understand that like he had a good number of absolute bangers as well, so there's kind of no denying that. That said, he is Big Baby Tape is definitely more energetic than Future, so I'm just gonna go ahead and play some of this. I like the album artwork too. It's simple, but it is eye-catching. Yeah, the auto-tune is, if you don't like auto-tune, this is going to be a tough sell. Like, it's a very throwback sound in 2026, but it's kind of like a more bouncy, energetic atmosphere though throughout it. It's a bit more playful in a lot of ways than that 2010s trap sound. So yeah, for people who were fans of Big Baby Tape as like a real rapper or whatever, this is like gonna be seen as a sellout type sound. But this doesn't feel like wildly different from his album with Arne a few years back. And like, it kind of does the sound well, so. It's fun. It's just like kind of fun. It's not really. So yeah, if you're looking for, again, kind of a bit of a throwback sound in 2026 for something of, depending on your age, something that might be from your university years or maybe your high school years or maybe middle school, I don't even know anymore, then yeah. Like if you're old enough to remember the 2010s, then you'll probably remember this sound dominating in one form or another. Again, it's not a one-to-one recreation of it, but there are a lot of similarities there. But it's done in like a really fun and bouncy way. And even though I'm not a big fan of autotune, even though, like I said, I was not a huge fan of Future in the first place, largely because of the autotune, but just because of how the rap sound changed with the introduction, or like with the arrival of Future on the scene. Yeah, I still had a good time with this. I think it's a fun release. So yeah, that's the little mini album here, ILOVEBENZO, by the artist Big Baby Tape. All right, and then we have one more rap hip-hop release, and this is Kravц with the album Doroga в жизнь. So I've talked about hookah rap before. Also, album artwork is it's kind of perfect. It's really cheesy or cringe or whatever you want to call it, but it's kind of perfect for what this album is. I've talked about hookah rap in the past. I made a video a few years back where one of the when I was talking about music, and one of the albums was Miyagi and Endspiel. And I do think it's interesting that the hookah rap sound, which is such a big phenomenon, or was a big phenomenon, it's like not dead in 2026, but it's just not as big as it once was, but that it never really got outside of the former USSR, which on the one hand is a shame, but on the other hand, I'm really glad that it didn't, because it's kind of nice that it's a local thing. I just wish knew people more about it, or I wish more people knew about it. Wow, what the hell is that about? I wish more people knew about it outside of this area. This isn't exactly hookah rap, right? But it is just sort of very extremely laid back album of rap tracks. It's like focused all on life, sort of like what really matters, avoiding things that bring us down and make life harder, even though we maybe think that they don't. Just like it's all about good vibes and good energy, and just kind of a nice, refreshing little bit there. So.
Шумят, пацаны кричат: с днем рождения, брат! Свечи горят, годы летят. С днем рождения, брат! Чтоб здоровье быка в голове адекват. С днем рождения, брат! Если что не так, не сдаем назад родной формат. В тебя верит семья. С днем рождения! Я поднимаю бокал за пацана, в котором есть душа. Желаю, чтобы жизнь шла не спеша. Разум был острый, как кинжал, чтоб легко дышалось, чтоб никто не ездил по ушам. Любимая движуха, чтоб росла как на дрожжах, чтоб тушил чужаков, как пожар, не испачкав пиджак.
Like, if you're not familiar with the hookah rap sound, like, I suppose from a Western point of view, it's got a bit of that reggae energy, reggaeton. Not exactly, but very similar. But it's just very laid back, and there's never any rush to the tracks.
Праздники в небе шары, все богато, Армани, Шанель. Идем в гору, все выше мы, и еще громче смех тишины. Деньги не так и важны, по рукам наше время бежит. Расскажи, брат, как надо жить, почем 1 грамм души, где намутить, в каких подъездах ждать, кого найти, взаймы взять или в кредит, там барыги или бандиты.
And that really, I don't even know how to describe this type of singing, but I'm sure there's a specific term or style, but this is also one of those deliveries, vocal deliveries that is very much a factor in and around that hookah rap sound as well.
Жизнь интересней, когда деньги на руках, а не в сердце. Найди обувь, стоп-то надо дыром район. Ради всего пары дней, когда душа поет. В эту жизнь я с ног до головы влюблю. Смог туманным идем. Обувь, стоп-то надо дыром район. Ради всего пары.
So I think this is one of those sounds, one of those albums that like is very specific mindsets, very specific mood. It's a very specific sound in general. But like I said, this hookah sound, you don't see it all that often in 2026. I don't really remember encountering it very much in 2025. There are some artists that still make it, but they typically are not very good at it. So for an artist to come along and do it well with nice production, nice instrumentals, and just like a you know, a specific voice, but one that does work with the sound. Yeah, not the type of thing I'm going to throw on all the time, but it is one of those albums that I could definitely imagine. I haven't smoked a hookah in many years, but this feels like the type of thing that would feel right at home in a very dimly lit, smoky lounge. So, and I think that's a-okay. So yeah, that is the album Doroga v жизнь, or Road to Life, and the artist is Kravц. And with that, and again, right, the album artwork kind of fits the sound, right? Like this very old school vehicle, this just like goofy ass individual out here, not taking themselves too seriously, just enjoying life, I guess, and the road to it in this, I don't even know what the hell kind of vehicle that is, but I bet it's fun to cruise around in. Anyway, that is the end of the sort of rap and hip-hop stuff. We have now got 2 electronic releases. I didn't mean to do it like this week, but we are basically going rap and hip-hop, electronic, rock music, and then we're going to end with kind of indie. So I did accidentally break them into categories, but that's also just kind of how I think it broke down in terms of what I prefer. So up next we have a meme album artwork. For those of you who know, you know. This is the album Project X by GSPD. who describes the music as new rave music. Well, I mean, new rave is actually a genre, so that is what it is. It's got just the kind of unrestrained energy of rave music, but there's a lot of silly kind of indie dance, rock, fun energy in there as well too. A lot of the songs feel a little bit like jokes, but as is the case with this sound, the sort of new rave sound and those genres that are similar to it, you don't really worry too much about the lyrics here. The lyrics are silly and kind of idiotic and childish at times. You don't really need to worry about the lyrics though. But if you do listen to this more than once and you do get into the lyrics, yeah, they're kind of silly, but it does work with the energy that is being delivered here. So it's also not out of place. It feels very much, it's like the type of album that's perfect when you're a teenager, and as an adult, it feels a little bit immature, but it's also the type of thing that you do, like we all have those inner children, right? So it feels like the type of thing that inner teenager every once in a while wants to burst out to. And honestly, the guests here, Dead Blonde features heavily. She's here 3 times, but Kuok is here once. So some pretty decent guests as well. Also, the title Project X is an allusion to the like house party film from the 2010s. For those of you who actually saw that thing, I think it's kind of like a cult classic at this point in time, but
чаще в лесополосе или чаще эти девочки на дискотеке в ожидании первого раза. Рейп авто рейп, Россия все так же красиво, прекрасно. Рейп эпидемия образа. Музло раскачало мы электроклуб, хоть и не сразу. Снова старая песня о главном. Как же грешно было то поколение. На спорт-режиме был дважды. Но слово поверь мне или проверь. Грустные песни, но люди веселые.
might as well just leave that open.
В этом трипе для каждого злой сосед. Вместо крыльев и небо лишь красный свет. 3 полосы стальной косте. Заведу с тобой разговор. С 3 нот угадая все пошлые мысли. Монету подкинем, но вот прикол. Мы вместо выбора тупо зависли.
So again, that kind of rave sound, but not exactly. New rave is actually a subgenre. You can look into it. There's a whole explanations about it online. But yeah, right. Like it's not super serious the whole way through. In fact, I would say it's pretty much not serious any of the way through. But that's okay. It's just supposed to be kind of fun. Like again, even the album artwork is a very clear internet meme. So and if you can understand Russian, you can see like some of the album titles are very clearly not very serious either. So yeah, it really doesn't require me showing any more of the album, even though I just highlighted 3 of the first 4 tracks. The rest of the album is pretty much like that, so it's a pretty open and shut case. I think it's either something that you're going to be interested in or not, and I don't know. It is fun. It is fun. Like I said, it's not necessarily the type of thing that you would, that I personally, I think that most people would want to, like, just really have on repeat or heavy rotation in any sort of that sense, but it's kind of fun. It's got that party energy, maybe when you need it. Maybe you got to get a project done or something like that. So that is Project X, and the artist is GSPD. And for a larger look at the album, Mephedrone music, maybe. I feel like it's a little bit too upbeat for Mephedrone, but maybe, I guess. Okay, I think this next one, though, Karozek, is probably a little closer to the Mephedrone music. This is the artist akiaura and LONOWN. I have no idea how to pronounce either of these, so you're going to figure that out for yourself. This is the EP Fake Everything Slowed. And I would not normally focus, I would not even like typically give my attention to a slowed, these are just remixes. These are slowed versions of all of the tracks on the Fake Everything EP by the artist akiaura that came out late last year. And normally a release like this, I would just completely ignore because it's just like, why would I, oh, that's good album artwork. Cool. I guess we'll just open the sidebar here in a second. The thing is, this would normally be a gimmick, something I just wouldn't really focus on, but I actually went back and listened to the original, and the original is like really frenetic, electro glitch, techno type of music. But when the tempo is pulled way back, it downshifts the vocals, makes them a little bit more androgynous, a little bit more ominous, gives the whole thing a lot more emotion, a little bit of some funk energy, PHONK. And there's a lot of witch house energy. There's a track that feels like it's straight up a Lost Crystal Castles track. Yeah, it's honestly, it's a release which is much better as a slowed version than it was in its original speed. So I'm going to start with the one that just reminds me a lot of Crystal Castles. It's like, I feel like it's edgy teenage internet music, but listen, yeah, Witch House is definitely Mephedrone music. Mephedrone is, yeah. But Witch House was such a weird flash in the pan musical phenomenon when it kind of exploded and then immediately died. For some reason, it somehow managed to survive in the Russian underground for a very long time. Crystal Castles is still, let's be real, in the discussion musically here. Like, it's still a huge musical influence. And in the West, I mean, people know Crystal Castles, but like, nobody's discussing them in 2026 as far as I know. And like, man, I loved this sound. It's still, anything that feels like a missing piece of the Witch House universe or the Crystal Castles discography is going to catch my attention. So, and like, so yeah, you can go back, if you get on Spotify, you can go back, you can find the original version of these tracks, and like, they're fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but I mean, again, I cannot stress enough that, like, I don't know if it was the original artist or whoever did the slowed down version, but whoever decided to just slow them way down, maybe just do that from the start. Yeah, Crystal Castles, I think, are they did a huge thing, and they often get forgotten. So. I mean, this is one of those releases that's gonna, I don't know, I'm sure there are like probably countless other releases that have a similar sound, but I don't know, this one just clicked with me for some reason. I also, like I said, this is not the type of thing that I normally would jump on with, but I saw it come up, I saw it pop up on various music channels, like completely unrelated ones too. It was just like, okay, hold up, I got like, what are we all talking about here? So, and again, that there is a little bit of the funk sound in there as well too, which I think is it's like that one little thing, type of beat for sure. So yeah, that. I don't know. I love this. I think it's great. This is the type of release that I'm for sure actually going to come back to. It's going to make its way into like various playlists for I don't know, like cycling or whatever. We'll have to figure that out in due time. But that is the EP Fake Everything slowed by the artist/artists akiaura and LONOWN. Honestly, too, album artwork fits perfectly with the sound. So, really good stuff. Really good electronic music. And we are shifting gears completely. We are now moving into like the rock kind of metal end of things. And we have this album, Who Shot John, by the group Whiskey Service. I avoided this one for a while, I'm not going to lie. Mainly because the album artwork, I did not have faith that this would be anything. Also, Whiskey Surfers, Who Shot John, just it felt very odd. And I gotta say, yeah, the first of all, the vocals are all in English for the most part. There's a little bit of Russian sprinkled throughout, but it is largely in English. This is a group out of St. Petersburg. It is a quartet out of St. Petersburg. Really oddball group of individuals. If you go on their Kontakte page, I mean, like, good for them, but it just like, it looks like the type of people who would not form a band like this. And the lyrics are definitely a little goofy. There's straight up a song called Mrs. Batman. I don't know. What is this? This is over an hour of this it's really good bluesy guitar rock that you would expect to hear in like some roadhouse bar out of a 1980s film, right? It's got a bunch of styles, even across single tracks. These musicians can, it's not like the same just bluesy rock chug type of riff. Like, they know musical styles and they do mix it up across the album and across individual tracks. But it never feels like they're trying to show off or like that they're going off on some prog journey. Yeah, it's just, I'm just going to play a little bit here. I don't even know. Like, I'll start with Mrs. Batman just to. I mean, so there is Russian here, but Let's go with nice, Krozik. Very good. It's not perfect, but this is their first album, and they came out swinging, right? 13 tracks, an hour and 10 minutes long. Obviously, it's like that sort of, like I said, it's bar rock is how I think of it. It's the type of music that I would expect to hear, like in my mind, in some dingy bar, right, drinking whiskey, and there's just some bar on the back. Again, in an 80s movie, there's always like a group playing music way better than deserves to be in a bar like that. But there's something here. Not every track is, phenomenal. And even on some of the tracks, which are, I would still say, like, really good, there are moments that are, maybe... I mean, honestly, Karozik, I don't know if the Russian audience is ever gonna hear of them. Like, that's kind of the problem. They've got like 50 followers on VKontakte. It's just like, I mean, granted, VKontakte is kind of a dead website, but... I don't know, that's a hell of a riff right there. And yeah, like the solos are nothing flashy, but it's just like it works. It works. It's simple, but it's, I don't know, it's tight. It's very tight musically. So it's a, I don't know, it's a good album. If you want some of that bluesy, like I said, bluesy bar rock, that for drinking whiskey or working on your motorcycle or riding a motorcycle or whatever, motorcycles are involved, like, let's be real, or I don't know, hanging out with your scarecrow with your rusted pickup truck, it doesn't matter. Really well done album. And again, I kid you not, if Karozik, you can go find Whiskey Surfers on VKontakte if you spend any time. If you're watching this and you know what VKontakte is, you can just search Whiskey Surfers online and you'll find some pictures. It is a very ragtag group of individuals. Like I said, the type of people, if you just put all four of them together, you would think that they were probably complete strangers. And the fact that they all play their instruments with that level of proficiency too, is just kind of like, what? But St. Petersburg is a very odd place, so maybe not the biggest surprise. So that is the album Who Shot John by Whiskey Surfers. So really, really completely out of left field, but again, this is why I decided to go through what I had left sitting in my January list, just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. Okay, now we're on Bandcamp, because this release, as far as I have been able to find or to tell, is not available on Spotify. It's not available on Yandex Music. It's on Bandcamp. So you're going to have to go to Bandcamp. But that's fine because this, it's just slow, fuzzy, heavy metal. It's basically Black Sabbath. If you like Black Sabbath, then you will like it. It sounds like Black Sabbath. It's obviously sounds better than Old Sabbath because recording technology has advanced a lot in the last 50 years. But yes, honestly, even the vocals feel a lot like a young Ozzy Osbourne. So if you like Sabbath, then you're going to like this, and you'll figure out what I'm talking about in just a second. It's got a very Sabbath album artwork too, right? Like the font, the flames. I should probably jump ahead a little bit. It's a bit it's kind of Ozzy. Even those little like fills right there. Just .9, the home of true rock. That's what we got right here. It can be a little bit more upbeat too. I do want to highlight that, but and I gotta say, I'm not like a huge Sabbath fan, right? When I was younger, Sabbath was always like an old band, so I wasn't really interested in it. As I got older, and I started to appreciate like the roots of heavy metal and hard rock, then I was like, okay, yeah, I get this, but I always preferred newer doom sounds to kind of that old one. But this is done so well. If the Fake Everything EP felt like a missing Crystal Castles release, then this feels like something, a forgotten relic of the Black Sabbath discography. So yeah, really good stuff. It's really good. It's solid all the way through. I don't really need to show anything more than that, highlight anything more than that, or say anything more than that. I think it's pretty clear. This is, I don't think I mentioned it in the beginning, but you probably may have been able to tell by the massive album artwork that I put up on the screen earlier. This is the album Helldiver by the group Grave Disgrace. So yeah, if you like that Sabbath sound, definitely give this a listen. If you know anybody who likes Sabbath, send this their way. It is only available on Bandcamp right now, as far as I can tell. But don't let that scare you away. The links are all down below, so I've done all of the footwork for you. You just have to click on them. Okay, down to the final two. And we are into indie rock territory. So up first, we have the album Boли, boли. God damn it. There are certain sound combinations in Russian, especially after going from English to Russian, that I'm just never going to be able to do. Boli. About pain. I guess we'll just translate it like that. By the artist group, Rubеж Веков, I think is where the ударение falls. I don't think it's Vekov. Yeah. Рубеж Веков. Yeah, people online were calling this folk rock. They were like, this is folk rock. This is like it's folk rock. It's back. This is not folk rock. I feel like the people who were saying that just didn't actually sit down and listen to this thing all the way through. I mean, this is indie rock. This is indie rock with a very heavy folk streak throughout it in certain parts of it. But it's like the chocolate swirl in the center of a marble cake, right? Without that, the end product is still good, but it's not the deciding factor in what makes it like its flavor. It's just like it's a little bit extra. I'm just going to jump around a little bit with the music. What I will say is that this is probably one of the best indie releases of the year so far. This one and the next one, I think, are you could argue both ways. There are a lot of different sounds. There are 13 tracks on this album. There are a lot of different sounds across those 13 tracks, but they all kind of catch your attention. They all hold your attention. Nothing feels half-formed. It's just a complete album where the artist had something to say. They knew how to say it, and they knew how to do it in a way that the listener is going to sort of stay with it. So let me just jump around.
Глуши свои стоны, ты поймешь, что на деле искусство кровоточит с надетой короной. Доберись до столбов из ракита, истоптав все лечебные травы, существом, что стихами избито, но без шанса зализывать раны, отворив всех задушенных гневом, оборви колтуны на ресницах, дай проспаться.
I feel like it's these, like, this is not folk rock. There's a vague folk thing going on in the background, right? Like, kind of. Yeah, kind of. And some of the rhythms and melodies, but like, that's not folk rock necessarily. Like, is this folk? No, I mean, like, if anything, I would say that this reminded me more of Imagine Dragons than folk rock. But, I mean, like, maybe that's just me. But it's definitely doing its own thing. Yeah, this is folk rock. Yeah, of course. Oh, of course. This is like that Brit rock sound from the early 2000s or 2010s, right? Or whatever the hell. I don't feel like this was This reminds me so much of something too, and I can't recall what it is.
Уже отплыли корабли, ты поняла, что я двоих не потяну, и я иду к своей мечте, ко дну. Как хорошо, когда ты сам.
But then on the next track, you have something that's just very acoustic folk.
И нет ничего, что назвал бы я домом. Слеза вырывается, сдержанно комом. Шатаюсь во мгле, надышавшейся пылью, поклявшись в бреду, что мечта станет былью. Гудит на Арбате живой переулок, стираются люди.
But then you have this kind of vaguely alt country, like a light version of that too, here. So,
А на заре снова лягу в бессонницу, будто под звездами дышится подлинник. Кинутся кубики, выйдет конница, всех перебьет и заедет на стойло. Вычешу, вымоюсь в лунном сиянии, троечка пастырей мечется в пламени.
it's not a folk release.
Высохли слезы в ресницах под...
There is some of that folk energy in there. I mean, like, that's fair. But this is very much an indie rock album that is just trying a bunch of different sounds. Not trying, it's using a bunch of sounds throughout its runtime. And this is one of those albums that you do... It is better when you just sit down and listen to it from start to finish. I know obviously you're supposed to do that with most albums, but there are a lot of albums you can just kind of like pause and get up, like the Project X album. That new rave energy you get up from. There is a sequencing here. There is a process of how this all goes together. The sort of neo-folk sound. Like, if anything, this is where you would pick up on the folk sound. But honestly, that was probably one of my least favorite parts of the whole thing. And then you have this one. This was like the track that exploded on TikTok last year and got people to pay a lot of attention to this group. And it feels like a party song. So it's not folk rock. It's definitely not that. Certainly not that. But it is indie rock, and it's a really good indie rock release. And it is one that, as I was jumping through it right now, trying to highlight some of these sounds and things that stuck out to me along the way, doing that skipping around thing really feels unfair to the album. Like I said, it is the type of release that you do want to sit down and listen to start to finish, because it does feel like there's a through line, even though maybe there isn't. Just musically, it does make sense when you go from the rock sound to that sort of reserved acoustic sound, and then you end with this party thing, where before that you have a... If you're open to it, and you're ready to, I don't know, give it 50 minutes, I would recommend doing so if you're interested in hearing what's happening with indie rock here in Russia at the start of 2026. But yeah, it is a good album. It's a very well formed piece of music as well. But yeah, that is Boли by the group Rubеж Веков. And I'm gonna finish with this one, which I personally think is a little bit better, but like I said, you could probably have a discussion back and forth. This is the album Pik Klakson by the group Dom Gneva. Now, Pik Klakson was a late Soviet Union, early Russia kind of rock, underground rock. They could maybe be labeled as punk, but they like Soviet punk, not punk in the sense of like the Ramones or the Sex Pistols type of thing, out of Siberia. So like late 80s, early 90s, that period of time. But they were a group that was largely forgotten. I honestly had not heard of them until I started digging around, trying to find out some information, more information about this album. What this album is a folk. This is folk rock, right? This is indie folk rock, whatever you want to call it. It does have some moments of classic rock sound, like I don't want to say Fleetwood Mac, but I'm going to say Fleetwood Mac type of classic rock sound. And it reimagines those old sort of underground Soviet rock, punk type of songs in that style. Very quiet, very beautiful, and it's a really interesting concept to take something which, if you go and listen to the original recordings, are very rough and raw and fuzzy, and they're just transformed into these really like delicate and well, just beautiful tracks. To quote the group about what's on this release, they said, "Baroque pop with a string quartet, overloaded guitars, folk with mandolin, a pastiche of Soviet Dixieland, flutes, horns, a mass of synths, a ton of percussion, and broken glass." And as one review that I saw put it, which I thought was really good too, this is what Russian rock could be if it didn't lose its imagination or a naive faith in goodness. The artists say it took them 5 years to record this, that they recorded it across 4 different countries. Yeah, it's just a really, really gorgeous album. I'm just going to start with like some of the first tracks here.
Есть две стороны медали, всего лишь две стороны медали. Ее ты можешь носить как хочешь, но все же лучше ребром. Ты боролся за правду, ты сражался со злом.
Yeah, maybe not Fleetwood Mac, but there is like something from that era here, right? I'm not just imagining it.
Тебя считают ослом.
Like, this is just so nice, just so pleasant. And again, if you go and you listen to the original recordings of Pik Klakson, you would never imagine it sounding like this. We got the flutes. They mentioned flutes. They were not kidding.
Я стою по колено в грязной воде. Я стою по колено в грязной воде. Небом сверкает радуга над головой. Я сам бы хотел знать, что со мной. Мне кажется, я в беде.
Something almost pastoral about that. And there is variation between the sounds, right? Like, it isn't just the same type of sound over and over again, which is nice. There's a similar energy, a similar mood. Like the backing vocals, the harmonization there. It's like all of these little things fit together so well and create just like this very... It's gorgeous. as a finalized product. Very quiet, very reserved.
Меня можно смешать с пылью. Дождь меня снова вымоет.
All right, one.
Уйди с виду молодые.
I'm assuming that this is the pastiche of Soviet Dixieland that they were talking about.
Старые дороги с новым ограждением.
Yeah,
Погнилые
for those of you who do not read Russian, Karozik said, as I already said, it is wonderful when people create just because they want to, live instruments, production for the songs, and not for marketing, which, yeah, like this is a product of this is a labor of love, ultimately. And you can feel it. Like, there's heart in this.
солнце удивляется.
Like, I love this. It's just like the tears want to come to your eyes with it. Just like, wow, there's something in it. It's so good. You even get like a little funky end to kind of wrap everything up. So, just maybe it took 5 years. I'm sure they weren't lying about it. But I gotta say, I'm really glad they finished it because this is phenomenal. This is one of those, this is like, right, you got the trumpet with the mute in the front of it. It's everything, just Russian Western music, but yeah, for sure.
Дайте билет туда, где солнце греет туда.
I didn't hardly see anybody talking about this release. Like I said, this came out in January. This was just one of those things that I was like, I do want to go back and take a look and make sure I didn't miss anything in January, because there was very little discussion about this release. So, yeah, I'm extremely glad I did, because this feels like one of those albums that you bust out, that you share with people, to just sort of completely catch them off guard with something that is so incredibly well done, so musically proficient, and so packed full of heart and soul and emotion that people who are hearing it are going to wonder why they never heard of it before. That's this type of album. So yeah, this is the album Pik Klakson by the group Dom Gneva. Just absolutely fantastic thing. And honestly, it does open up the fun idea that maybe artists, well, not just in Russia, but perhaps in other countries, other sort of indie folk artists could maybe look into some underground, forgotten rock or punk icons and reimagine their songs in a similar vein, because yeah, it's a fun concept, but I guess it has to be a labor of love. So that is the top pick of the week. There's no doubt about it. Karozik says, wonder how you feel about most of the guys around your age played cowboys and Indians in their childhood. I don't, the thing is, like, I don't think people my age really played cowboys and Indians. Cops and robbers, perhaps, I will say. But yeah, I don't remember anybody ever really playing cowboys and Indians. I think that was of realistically more my parents' generation, or maybe even before that too. So yeah, I feel like it was just cops and robbers. And I don't even know if we really played cops and robbers all that much. I mean, there's tag, right? You run around. It's kind of got the same energy. So yeah, westerns for sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like when westerns were a big thing, that would have been what led into cowboys and Indians. Oh yeah, the Soviet people my age would have played cowboys and Indians. I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything that people hold against adults for things that they did as a child, that they played cowboys and Indians. I mean, you see something as a kid and you recreate it. If it's cops and bad guys on television, if it's cowboys and Indians, if it's cowboys versus aliens or something, like, who knows, right? Like, that's just what you play, and you don't think about it. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of, that's fine. So yeah, I don't think there's anything. It's not a weird feeling. Maybe it would be interesting to hear what some Native Americans have to think about that, but I don't think either that it's like a huge thing that they're super worried about, all things considered. It's probably just like, okay, yeah. So you see a film, you emulate it, but I don't think that they're oblivious to like that type of messaging in the film industry by and large. So anyway, that's other stuff. Yeah, music-wise, kind of an interesting week. Some unexpected stuff there. Nothing like, well, actually there were some really good things. The first few months of the year so far, right? I know technically this is the last stream in February, but next week I'll be still doing February music. So it still feels like the first 2 months of the year so far have been kind of quiet, that there hasn't been anything just like completely mind-blowing. But I'm sure we'll get there. There has been a lot of good stuff. And I think that's, sometimes maybe that's the safest bet. The things that you just know are good, like Pik Klakson, because they're just stable and they were good in the moment. They're going to be good a year from now. They're going to be good 5 years from now. They're just kind of timeless in that regard. Whereas things that are really explosive sometimes do not age as well, or they get forgotten more quickly. But yeah, I'll be back next week to do more of this with another 10 or maybe more albums from February. So yeah, anyway, I'll be back next Thursday, same time. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's always nice. Yeah. And then obviously the news, you know what time the news is if you're watching this, and if you're not watching it, then anyway, it doesn't matter. Everyone have a good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of the day it is. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you when I see you, and until then, paka paka.